Good evening, Beach Brother Show viewers. This is Conrad Chesviner here. You may be enjoying this great Elsa evening, is what I'm going to call it, with tropical storm now, tropical depression Elsa, traveling on through. So I hope you guys are safe and at home and ready to watch a nice, great episode of the Beach Brother Show. So let's get right on into the intros. Give me 1 second for the Wi-Fi. You hear that wind? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, the Beach Brothers.
So look, the Beach Brothers Show is a show where we deal with Virginia business and politics.
Well, I'm Conrad Chesviner. I'm a Hampton Roads political activist. Best ideas for community improvement happen to drive me.
I help folks that are approaching retirement and in their retirement years.
I have what I call the empowerment agenda. And that means that everything I do is focused on empowerment. You want to give a salute to Tally and Twine. It's time for you to have a high quality watch made in Virginia, made in Portsmouth, Virginia, from Tally and Twine. We want to say thanks to Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier for their great level of sponsorship. If you need a new car, you don't need to go far. Southern Volkswagen Greenbrier. And ladies, if you want your brows to say, wow, check out IamLitaWee.com. Microblading by IamLitaWee.com. I'm Seiko Varner. I do credit fixes, tax resolutions. I lend private money to real estate investors, and we do debt consolidations. If you need any of these services, contact me as provided. And now it's time to get beachy on the Beach Brothers Show.
Welcome back. I'm going to go right into my podium tonight. And the sniping that has been between Republican governor candidate Glenn Youngkin and Democrat candidate Terry McAuliffe is heating up naturally. And I want to take a moment to highlight the words of the first elected Black governor in the nation's history, Virginia's Douglas Wilder. So here are his words. As I related to WRVA's Jeff Katz at a recent interview, I have been the beneficiary of much that has been done to eliminate the effects of racism in our state and the nation. Sacrifices beyond compare and description were made by those mostly unnamed, unknown, regardless of race, to promote equality of opportunity and enhance possibilities. The statewide election this year in Virginia presents questions which require answers from those seeking to lead. 2 years ago, Terry McAuliffe called for all three persons occupying the offices of governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general to resign. Governor Northam had been shown pictured in his school's yearbook in blackface, and subsequent revelations by A.G. Mark Heron acknowledged appearing in blackface in 1985. The media ran the story of two women accusing Lieutenant Governor Fairfax of sexual assault, denied by Fairfax, but former Governor McAuliffe, within minutes thereafter, proclaimed the accusations to be credible. Today, McAuliffe is asking people to vote for AG, who served as his Attorney General, and seeks the continuing support of Northam. No reasons have been given to the voters as to Terry's change of mind, nor has any reason been made why McAuliffe felt compelled to violate Virginia's long-standing precedent by choosing to run again against persons who had far more experience than he, as he had never held elected office of any kind when he ran. All of the candidates he opposed except one were Black, including two women, whom he felt not qualified to be given the chance that he had been given. As last report, Northam has withdrawn his apology for blackface. Is what Northam and Heron did all right by any standard? Is McAuliffe going to tell voters of the credible evidence that he had relative to Fairfax? Or does this suggest that if you're a Black person in Virginia, if you got to think about who you are and going to vote, then you ain't Black? While this completes the former governor's remarks, it does play on Joe Biden's commentary last year when running for president. a line, the "You Ain't Black" line, that tinged just a little harder than when Hillary said she keeps hot sauce in her bag in 2016. The latter is cheesy pandering, but the former was more indignant. The former governor raises a solid point. Sometimes controversies can just fade away and be retired when they're expedient. Don't just forget. And that is my podium. Now, tonight, joining the Beach Brothers show this evening is Culpeper, Virginia Councilman Jon Russell. I'm going to add him to the stream right now. And let me continue on here. He's a small business owner of Local Identity Incorporated. And he's also owned a coffee business and started 3 medical clinics with his wife, Sarah. They've been married for 18 years, and together they have 4 children. Sarah is a family nurse practitioner and owns Libertas Integrative Health. His children spend their free time learning musical instruments, ballet, and horse riding. In addition to his public service and entrepreneurship, Jon holds a Bachelor's of Science in Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness from Thomas Edison State University. He is a graduate of the Sorensen Institute at University of Virginia and member of the Culpeper Chamber of Commerce. He also served as a chairman of the Culpeper Republican Party from 2017 to 2019 and past chairman of the Culpeper Salvation Army. So, Councilman Jon Russell, thanks for joining us and welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Conrad. Thanks for having me tonight. I've been looking forward to get on here, and I'm glad we could finally make it happen.
Thank you so much. I know we have been discussing for a little while to get you on. I'm glad we were able to sit down and talk about your vision and such. But I had been following your page today, and I noticed some interesting stuff that was going on with you regarding allegedly the Illuminati and a newspaper and socialism. That just struck my fancy. So can you tell me a little bit more about all that?
It's not true. I don't know who told you otherwise, but I do not know a secret handshake. I am not. I think someone referred to me as a reptile king today as well. It's really par for the course in regards to where we're at in our political environment right now. Mm-hmm. No one wants to discuss issues. They'd rather just flamethrow and do the things that they see being done on the national level, and it's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of dialogue to be had, especially at the local level, where we are really community. We know each other. We're neighbors, and to have that kind of vitriol and that kind of just mudslinging is really unfortunate. But it's the times in which we live.
You're right about that. I've seen my share of just the weirdness when it comes to politics, and sometimes you just want to sit down and talk about issues. So I'm glad we can take that opportunity tonight. I sort of want to break yourself down for a second to give the viewers a just chance to learn more about you. So talk about your community history, what you've done in the community. Talk to us a little bit about Sorensen, your history on council, and of course the businesses.
Yeah, well, we moved here earlier last decade and came out here for a contract job that I had. And when we chose Culpeper, we chose it because it had everything we needed in a small town, and we didn't have to leave town to go buy anything. I mean, we could do it all right here. I always say it's the small town with modern amenities, and so it was the right fit. But one of the things I noticed in local governments was that they were having their elections in May. And so basically you had for town, for the mayor, for council, you had 700 people making decisions for almost 20,000 people. And so I didn't see the justice in that. And then also, when you look at the makeup of our town, we're roughly around 39% minorities. But yeah, we only had one minority on the council of 9. And so it wasn't really reflective of the people in which they were serving. So I brought to the council the idea of moving the election to November and to get more participation. Hopefully the council will then reflect more of what the town looks like. They passed it to a voter referendum. I ran the campaign to get it passed. It passed with 82% of the vote. And we moved our elections to November of the odd years. And so it lines up perfectly with the governor's race and the statewide races, and doesn't really get into the national politics, which is what we kind of wanted to avoid in that process. So as a result, that was 2014. The new council and everyone was seated. The first election for that was held in 2015, and as a result, we now have more minorities on the council, which I think is a better reflection of the community. We also have we have races now that actually mean something, and they're just not how many of your buddies can you get to the polls. You actually have to go work for it. And so I think it's been good all the way around. And so that was my first involvement into politics locally here. And then I ran for council 2014. Actually, I ran the last May election we had. I ran in that race. Mm-hmm. And ended up coming in. We do at large, so I came in third out of 4 seats. And so it was that was the beginning, and then was reelected again in 2017. And so it's been a really good opportunity to serve. I've been involved with the Chamber of Commerce here as well as the Salvation Army. We bought a home here. We had rented for around the first 5 years we lived here in a nice little neighborhood. But we've been up buying an older home, 1920s home. It sits on 2 acres in town next to the park. We actually use it as an event center as well as for our home. So we have events here on the property as well as in the house for nonprofit organizations and political events and so forth. So right. Yeah, that's a lot of it. My time at Salvation Army was awesome. Really enjoyed serving there. We have a good social service network here with the Salvation Army in Culpeper, providing, doing the most good, which is their slogan. Mm-hmm. And we definitely do.
Excellent. Now, you're not the first from Culpeper to be on the Beach Brothers show before. We've had Delegate Nick Freitas on a couple times. Very interesting guy. Because we've had on some Culpeper flair before, I would like you to take the opportunity to sort of speak on Culpeper itself. Like, what's it like and your favorite parts of the city?
Well, I tell you what, it's not just even the town; it's the county also. I mean, we live in Culpeper County. I live in the town of Culpeper. The two are really interchangeable because we shared a lot of tourism. We're well known for our equestrian sports, as well as for our distilleries and wineries here. We're about 30 minutes from the mountains, so you can easily go up for a hike in a day and come back and be back by lunch. And so it's a really good place to be from. We have we're in the rolling hills. Our downtown, which is really vibrant, especially for not being a college town, is pretty amazing. We have 100% occupancy in our downtown businesses, and we have 5-star dining. Matter of fact, I would put our restaurants up against anyone else in the state. We're that good. And so it is an amazing little town that is, I call it the envy of the Commonwealth, just because I believe that what we offer is what people are looking for. They want that small town feel with the modern amenities, with to be able to eat out and have nice dining. Tourism's really heavy here. Most of our tourism comes from DC and Charlottesville. So that's been really that's a good markets for us. Usually parents meeting kids or just a little weekend getaway. And so we have a lot of Civil War history here, tons. I mean, so where Stonewall Jackson mounted up his last charge before he was killed. We have a lot of battles that took place here, a lot of markers, historical markers, and it's an amazing area to be from. And this is the best time of the year right now when it's really hot and soggy out. This is the South, baby. I mean, you can't get any better than this. This is my favorite.
I would imagine that you would also get more snow than we would get over here in the eastern part of Tidewater. So you have a good balance. I imagine some good blizzards and also some really, really hot sticky July weather. So
Yeah.
good stuff. Now, at present, Virginia Beach is very rainy. In fact, I've been trying to mute myself a lot during the comments to keep the sound of the rain down from Elsa. And I was able to get home safe and sound in my Volkswagen Jetta. And I'm getting that service, by the way, on Monday. And I'll be stopping by Greenbrier's Southern Volkswagen, 1248 South Military Highway. It's where I got that Jetta. And you guys can get a cool Jetta too by stopping into Southern Volkswagen and having a nice chat with Charlie Roy. So head on over and you'll get a car that you can maneuver around in one of these little tropical systems. Now, Mr. Russell, Virginia Beach is a council manager form of government. Districts, as of now, but will soon be replaced because of both a court case and a new law, are at large voted, but they're district named. So tell us a little bit about the design of Culpeper's government. Does it have any drawbacks?
Yeah,
you could speak
so we're very similar. Actually, every locality, every town, every city in Virginia, except for Richmond, is a weak mayor form of government. So you basically have a manager council set up where the manager runs the town, council oversees, and the mayor oversees the manager. That was actually that form of government was created in Virginia. We're the first of ever for everything. It was created in Stanton, of all places, and then it became national, and it was taken on by a lot of other jurisdictions, other states, and so we're very similar. We don't have districts. That might be something down the road we have to do. We'll see what the census does when the numbers come in. But as of right now, everyone runs at large, and the top 4 vote getters for council get elected, and the mayor's winner take all. So there's no kind of runoff or anything like that.
Pretty cool. I noticed that you were able to reach all the way back to a little bit of history, that Stanton is where that form of government really vaulted itself. So Culpeper history is also something I could probably tell that you're really into. So as someone who's both on council now and wants to be a mayor later in the year, how do you want to protect and enrich Culpeper's history?
Well, I think that's really important. One of the things I've really have probably too dogmatic, but have preached to the council and to the public is, listen, we cannot follow the crowd. As we see cities tearing down statues, as we see them erasing names, we don't have that luxury. We are dependent upon tourism. It helps us keep our taxes low and makes us a great place to live. We are, all of us who live in Culpeper, we're ambassadors for our town and for our county. And so when people come here, we help them get to where they're going to go, show them the good restaurants, show them the battlefields. It is ingrained in who we are. But there definitely has been a miscarriage of justice over the years that, we have a lot of Black history here, and a lot of that has been lost. And right now there's a group of people actually doing a lot of research to find some of these hidden treasures, if you will. And what we're finding is, after the Civil War, Culpeper was one of the most fought over towns in the entire war. Matter of fact, it changed hands like 7 times in one day. And the reason was because we have a depot and we're on the train, and it was a very strategic area. We have a stable right downtown where both Lee and Grant put their horses. It's still there. It's actually a restaurant now. And so we have we're steeped in that history. But like I said, we've missed the opportunity to tell a different story, to tell the contributions of Black citizens within Culpeper. And as I said, I think I said just a minute ago, is 50% after the war, 50% of our small businesses were Black owned. That's one of those Tulsa stories, right? This is one of those things where, that needs to be told. There needs to be some recognition of that, because that's a big deal. There's also a lot of significant Black doctors and other people in the community that also need to be recognized for their contributions. So my thought and my belief is that we don't erase things, we don't tear down things. How do we work to improve the way we do name public sites and streets? Is there a way that we can incorporate the history into anything we do for the future? Because it's all the good, bad, and the ugly, all of it is important because it tells a story and is really part of our fabric.
I am intrigued simply because not only does it have that much depth of history, I enjoy just learning right now that not only did Lee and Grant both have a stable in the same part of town, literally, and that it changed hands so many times in just one day, but it also had like a different business makeup entirely, and that sort of went away. Um, you're right in that if we're sort of speaking on how we could properly learn history, perhaps that could not only attract more people to come by to start again in terms of the idea of maybe reflourishing what was once lost business. If
Right.
that makes sense, then I'm just spouting off, I guess, on that.
Yeah.
Now, let's take a little bit about another topic you're interested in, because as you just mentioned, you've been elected twice to council. You're
Mhm.
right now going for mayor, and
Right.
you want to do term limits.
Yes.
Talk to us about why. Why are they
Yeah.
particularly needed in your eye?
So, what a lot of people don't understand about politics and is that incumbency carries with it great name recognition. Matter of fact, at one point in the last, I think I read a statistic in the last 5 years that 96 to 98% of all elected incumbents from the national to the local level get reelected every time they run. That's a travesty because I believe being around politics for a long time myself, one of the things I've noticed that when a person stays in a position longer than 10 years, one of two things happens to them. They become corrupted by the system and they sell out, maybe the very reasons they ran for, or the system burns them out and they become ineffective. And so I believe that 2 terms in one position and then either going back to your occupation or running for something else is appropriate. One of the fights that we have, a lot of our fights are not even ideological. That in local government, a lot of them revolve around cronyism, revolve around doing things for your buddies. And once you put term limits into place, that stops because those relationships have to be broken at that point. And so really, contracts or anything that may have taken place in the past will eventually have to be looked at with fresh eyes. And I think that is the importance of term limits. So what I'm proposing is that we pass a charter, or we pass it outright to the charter amendment, or we pass a referendum to the people asking them to limit the amount of time someone can serve as a town councilman or as mayor to 2 terms, total of 8 years for life.
All right, so it would be a nice, intriguing thing to initially bring up. Do you have any thoughts on whether or not the idea of staying in there past 10 years is itself corrupting, or does it just create the idea of people become more indifferent to the idea of listening to the people, or is that
Well,
the same thing?
it's the nature of government. Government is an unnatural entity. It doesn't exist except off the labor of other people. It doesn't produce anything. And when you have an organism, if you will, that sole purpose is dependency on forced taxation, taking money from people, you have a system that is flawed from the beginning. And so that flaw works its way through. I think people who are in office for a long time because they see that they have power, they have the ability to move money, other people's money. They have, unfortunately in Virginia, we have terrible open meetings laws and Freedom of Information Act laws that protect incumbents, protect conversations. And so many of these things do not ever see the light of day because the government protects its own. And so that's the answer.
It reminds me a little bit about, for instance, we just had a council meeting in Virginia Beach on Tuesday night, and It was like 6 hours long. But the first council meeting of the month is supposed to be the one for open mic. And that's the one they don't put the cameras on.
Hmm.
So, or at least specific to Virginia Beach. I don't know how that works in Culpeper. But you're right. It just seems like sometimes
that was one of the rules that I brought forward to the council when I first came on, was that before I came on, the chairman had discretion on whether of the committees and council, whether or not they had public comment. So if the chairman didn't feel like having public comment, they didn't have to. So I made a rule that the council adopted and is still in effect today, that every committee meeting, every public meeting has to have a public comment time, guaranteeing the right for people to speak at their meetings. And I think it's extremely important. I don't think we do enough. I think we don't look at, even with technology and advances and allowing people to Zoom in for a meeting to give public testimony. I think we're so behind the curve in regards to technology and engaging the public. And maybe it's by design. I don't know. But it's definitely something that I think it's way past time to get engaged in.
Especially acknowledge that as we move into a more technology-focused type of community across not only the state but the country, we would want to have more interest of people watching local government online. So if you're not going to have the streaming include the public comments, then you're right. It's not doing a service to the public to even hear the public itself talk to government. So I would appreciate, even as someone who's on the other side of the aisle, transparency being exposed, if you will, to the public for the sake of transparency. I think that's a good thing.
I don't think we can have too much transparency. I mean, even you look at in the Commonwealth of Virginia, if you live in a town of 25,000 and under, you do not have to. If you're running as an elected official, you do not have to disclose where your campaign money comes from. Mm-hmm. So nobody running for office knows who's sold and who's bought. And again, it's that lack of transparency, especially in the smaller towns where there's not a lot of oversight. You get somebody with a lot of money, they can pull the strings. Mm-hmm. And so definitely something that I think needs to be reformed.
Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for the specter, if you will, of dark money and the money that corrupts just as much as too long staying in politics. Big money does the same thing, or at least that would be my position on that. Now, another important topic that is big all over the state, it's hard here in Virginia Beach, and I'm sure it probably does in Culpeper too, and that is affordable housing. Now, you're notably more of a conservative Republican, and I've even heard from some of your friends that you're a little bit of a libertarian streak, and I'm not dissuaded from that. I used to be one myself. So how do you personally, your view of government and what you want to do as mayor, approach affordable housing?
Okay. The way we're doing it now is not working. I was on the no side of a vote to approve 3,000 people moving into a neighborhood with one entrance going in and out of the neighborhood. And that's a disaster waiting to happen, just from an emergency management standpoint. But that addition was put in. I was one of two votes against. And it's unfortunate because we haven't addressed a couple of issues. We haven't addressed parking adequately, and we haven't addressed stormwater management adequately. And so when we go and put these huge additions in there, even though they have by right, they can put so many houses in there, they're wanting more than that. So when they go and do that, and we don't deal with the stormwater issue, we don't deal with the parking issue, we exacerbate the problem, and we continue, and the cost of the houses just go skyrocket. And so there's really it's not, some people like the term smart growth. I don't like it. I think it's become bastardized. I like the idea of thoughtful growth, and in doing it in a way that grows according to the characteristics of the community in which you live. And so a lot of that has to do with infilling vacant spaces within the community, making sure those get the focus. If that means providing some kind of incentives for people to develop in those areas, then we do that in some way, whether it's reduced tap fees or reduced taxes of some kind. One of the things that we don't have, I think Virginia Beach does have it, but we don't yet, is mixed use zoning, which I think it really is an answer to prayer in a lot of ways. You get both commercial and multifamily in one area. It solves a lot of problems. It solves a lot of problems for the businesses because now they have built-in customers, and it also allows for people to actually have housing close to amenities. So there's that aspect of things. The other thing we do terribly here in the town, which we need to fix, is the and you may hear my son come busting in here with a song in a minute. So the other thing that we are seeing is that in order to take a detached garage and make it into an apartment that you can rent out or allow your mother-in-law to live in, you got to do a transportation impact study. You've got to pay the tap fee for it. It is incredibly difficult to utilize your own property to be able to provide housing. And so what we're stuck with is we have a lot of rental houses here, but now the prices are gone up well over $1,000 a month, and which is not sustainable for the working poor. It's not sustainable for the middle class in some cases. And when we lock out competition in the apartment sphere of things, and we just keep a tight hold and allow only certain people to be landlords, they can charge whatever they want. And so the price goes up and up and up. There was a meeting the other day on low-income housing that we had, and one of the developers here, him and I don't really get along, but at least he was honest. He said, "I don't want low-income housing in here. I want to be able to charge as much as I can get for whatever I have." And at least he was honest about it. But I think there are solutions that don't require government intrusion into development of multifamily. But a lot of that is relaxing zoning ordinances, reducing tap fees, strategic placement of where those things go, and allowing more people to even tiny home clusters is another thing that we have to have. If I've got an acre of property across the street and it's able to be utilized for 10 tiny homes, let's do it. I mean, that's, those are $500 to $600 a month for, a family of three to live in a tiny home, or, family two. So, there are things that I want to do as mayor that I think are really the next steps for us to be able to grow in a thoughtful way.
Now, I immediately reminded, as you mentioned a lot of that, because I ran for office a couple of times here in Virginia Beach myself. And the first time I did was in 2018. And a really good speaker on the topic of what to do with affordable housing was Virginia Beach Republican Brad Martin, who liked the idea of new developments having certain designated amounts of it to be specifically set aside for low-income housing. So if you have like a whole suburban development of many houses, like a certain amount have to be set aside specifically for lower income individuals. And then I'm also reminded of, we've had on the Beach Brothers show, Delegate Samara from even more northern Virginia than Culpeper, who his proposal made a little bit of Virginia news because he wanted to sort of change zoning statewide, I guess, to more high density for small areas. And I'm thinking it's not necessarily something that conservatives would have to shy away from immediately if they also like the idea of expanding affordable housing, because that's something that I would agree that we would need both here in Virginia Beach, there in Culpeper, across the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with it. It's called inclusionary housing is what he was pushing, the first person you mentioned. And, I don't believe in telling a developer, you have to do this to provide this type of housing in this development that you're doing. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think it causes more problems than it helps. I do find the idea of changing how we do zoning intriguing. Zoning in particular was racist from this very beginning. Zoning was created so that you could keep people of different colors away from each other, and so I think that there's something there that needs to be fundamentally fundamentally changed about zoning and how we do zoning. I think the answer to that actually rests in mixed use zoning. So, and allowing people to have more flexibility with what they do in their property and how they connect with the town.
Good point. Well, that was about 3 years ago when I heard Brad speaking on that. So I don't want to take what he was suggesting fully out of context. Definitely, Brad, if you are watching, I want to have you on so you can speak on what your idea fully was, because I don't want to mischaracterize it, if you will. Another topic that's both important here in Virginia Beach, because in the 90s, if I remember correctly, we made so much statewide news because we secured rights to Lake Gaston to hook up a more solid water supply for the city of Virginia Beach. You're interested in helping out the city of Culpeper's water for strengthening, I guess, its potability, so it's better and safer to drink. So could you touch on your just ideas that you have regarding the city's water?
Yeah, in 2018, we had a citizen group go around and collect 700 signatures talking about how our water is disgusting. Basically in some areas of the town, it's red. Sometimes it comes out black. Sometimes it comes out brown, just depending on where you're at. A lot of that has to do with the piping and the age of the pipe. It's a lot of this the old iron pipe, and it becomes clogged like an artery. And then the water's running all of those minerals and sediment through there, and eventually it will clog up and create even more rupturing problems. There's a couple things. There's some things that we need to do. So back to the citizens. When the citizens went and got these petitions, they came to the town, 2018. They said, "Listen, we want you guys to fix this problem. We want you to do an independent water study." So we did an independent water study. We had a company come in and do that. They came back with, primarily the major thing they suggested was unidirectional flushing, which helps move the sediment and stuff out of the piping. And that was 2018, 2019. My opponent was running for council at the time and said, "Well, we don't have a water problem." Well, it's ridiculous. You look at the water in some areas, and we have a problem. You try to smell or even drink the water, no one drinks our tap water. No one. We have to change that. And what that's going to take is a couple things. One is we need open competitive bidding on piping material. Right now, because we only use ductile iron for our water supply, they can charge and ask whatever they want, and we have to pay it because they don't have to compete with any other kind of pipe material. What we need to do is to open that up and allow competition, allow PVC and plastic and other things to compete, concrete, whatever, and then make the decision based on that. Because when you open up the specs and allow piping materials to compete, your town or your city will save roughly about 30% on its projects just by open and competitive bidding. And we've seen that in cities all over the country. And so by doing that, that will allow us more money to be able to go and spend to fix some of the problem areas that we have without raising rates or anything like that. The other thing is the unidirectional flushing. We're in the process of doing that now, but it needs to be done more often. It needs to be done seasonally. And then the third is we really need personnel that know water, not just water. I mean, water. Pushing water out from the well and from the dam and those kinds of things. That's one thing. But how do you get to a place where you're winning awards for the taste of your water? That's where we need to go. And so that is my kids usually have to get their water out of the refrigerator filter. At the fridge, they put the water up there. It takes a while. It's a smaller line, and the water takes a long time to fill up the pitcher. Well, my daughter went ahead and went to the tap just to save time. Didn't think anyone would notice. When she set the pitcher on the table and we all had water, we were like, "What did you do to this water? It tastes like a pool." And so there is a distinct difference between the filtered water and the unfiltered. And then we also have people reporting all over town about the washing machines and dryers and the washing machines and water heaters that have to be replaced on a usual basis because of the sediment running through the lines. This is a big problem, and it's not something one person's going to fix, but it takes people who can think out of the box, and that's what we don't have on the council right now. It's what we don't have in our town administration. We just basically have an old system, and we just got to kind of just make it work. And that's not how we're going to have to be able to do this going forward.
I am curious, how much of state help on that matter would you like to have, or do you think it is possible for most of it to get done within the infrastructure of Culpeper itself?
Well, we have multi-million-dollar reserves in our water fund, and a lot of that is based on just future projects that we're anticipating. So we do have the money in the bank to start working on these. But like I said, we open up competitive bidding on piping, our project costs go down. That'll save us money there. I think we can do it. I've got to get a council in there that's going to be willing to challenge. When I brought this up about the open competitive bidding, no one would back me on council. And they said, well, he's the expert and you're not, talking about the director. Well, the director, this is what people don't understand about directors in towns. People always complain about politicians being bought off or having special interests influencing them. These directors of these towns have the exact same thing. They've been schooled a certain way to think in a certain box. They go to conferences that are paid for by these big companies that also take them out and play golf with them. It's not just the politicians, it's the bureaucrats as well. That are dealing, that are subjected to special interests. So, just because someone's an expert doesn't mean that they can think out of the box and they actually can do, things differently. Just because they're, we need people in these positions that are willing to make the changes necessary to solve the problem once and for all.
And I definitely appreciate the gusto to want to fix something that seemingly never gets around to being fixed.
Well, it's not sexy, right? It's not like our police department, with those sirens and lights and the stopping criminal action, from happening. This is underwater infrastructure. People just want clean water. They don't know how it gets there, why it gets there, or who's in charge. All they know is they want to be able to have clean water.
And not only the aspect of drinking water, but as I look out my window right now, and you can probably hear it because I unmuted the mic, it's raining pretty hard. What about flood water in Culpeper? What is the infrastructure there? Does that need improvement too?
We have a 100-year-old stormwater system.
Sounds a bit old.
Yeah. So about once a year, maybe twice a year, we have major floods that flood out a hotel in our town. They flood out a 7-Eleven in our town. They wash out roads. We have had such exponential growth in the last 20 years that our stormwater system really can't keep up with it. And then, of course, the state really is not doing anything to help with stormwater issues. They're just kind of, you send us a report and we'll, act like we care, type thing. And so with all the development that's been happening, and then we don't clean out our creeks and our tributaries. That's the other issue. This last flood we had a month ago, there were full-on trees in these tributaries blocking bridges, which helped clog up the water and stop the water from getting out of, from flooding this hotel. We don't clean those out. We don't dredge them. I think it's important to dredge at least every once in a while to be able to clean those creeks out and those tributaries to get water moved out of the community. And just a lot of people, kind of the old way, people are like, oh, well, it's always flooded and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it may have flooded in the past, but it doesn't flood with this kind of routine and this kind of furious behavior, if you will, from the rain that comes down and where it lands. I had a stormwater drain right outside on the street next to my house and didn't think anything of it till one day when I had one of these really big rains, and all of a sudden I saw trash and debris through the middle of my backyard. And I'm like, what's that from? We'll kind of find out when they originally put in the design for it. They designed it to blow out into my backyard. So that's where all the water runoff and all of the trash and everything that gets collected in there gets blown out into my backyard. It's a 100-year-old system. And so, the stormwater issue has got to be dealt with. I don't, it's always been that way is not an answer. It's just not. It's laziness.
Mhm. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially because I know we have our own battles here in Virginia Beach too.
Oh, you guys get it bad. You guys
we get it bad, and we just, and again, I don't want to keep harping on the fact that it seemed like every year that I ran, that was a topic that everyone who was running was talking about was, hey, we're going to fix flooding now. And then another year goes by, hey, we're going to fix flooding now. Another year goes by, hey, we're going to fix flooding. And this past Tuesday, I think they had a ordinance that they proposed to the city to offer about $110 million in general revenue bonds or obligation bonds, specifically to be used for flooding. Down the line of like, okay, finally, you guys might seem like you're going to open the door to want to do something. Hopefully, it doesn't take too long here in Virginia Beach, just like hopefully it doesn't take too long in Culpeper to finally start the gears rolling.
See, that really gets to me. We're about 4 years out. I think 4. So we're about 5 years out from being debt free, retiring all of our bonds, all of our debts. That's a goal of ours. That's what we've set out to do. Anytime government goes out to get a bond or raise taxes, I'm a no vote. I'm a no vote every time because we don't have in Virginia performance audits on our local government. We have no way to test the efficiency and effectiveness of our departments. We just rely on guesstimates. Oh, well, we need this much money. Okay, well, how do you know you need that much money? Well, that's just what we had based on the year previous. Performance audits are different than financial audits. Everyone has to have financial audits. Performance audits are something you have to, they're calling forensic audits also, something your council has to adopt. But I would just say, no, you're not getting another dime from me. You're not enslaving me to debt one more time until you show me that the money you have, that you're spending it wisely. But sorry, that's just, I get so upset when I hear $20 billion or $20 million bonds. Come on.
Yeah, especially when you get above 100 for Virginia Beach, you're like, just because we have a $3 billion budget that they want to add more debt. I'm like, I thought you guys have been spending millions of dollars a year anyway for flood maintenance. Then you wanted to add more debt. That means you're sort of compounding it. But again, we could go off into the weeds on that for a little bit. I want to move on a little bit to everyone's favorite topic the past couple of years because of big social movements that have been across the country. And so this is more of a 2020, 2021 focused question, and that's around law enforcement. I admit I'm more police reform. Some have even called me the defund the police type of progressive. You'd like to be Culpeper's mayor. So how would you like to take the mantle of policing in the city of Culpeper?
Well, when I came on the council, we were having some real issues in the police department. A couple of years prior to that, we had an officer shooting of a lady who was mentally ill. Basically, she drove off with the officer's arm in the car, and he shot her. And so there was this big thing that police chief ended up leaving. New chief came on, someone who had been in the department for a long time, but had a different vision. I think a lot of what we have to see in policing is a culture change, and how we see that starts at the top. Starts with your captains, your lieutenants, your chief, your major. It starts with them. And what our new chief did, he came in and said, "Listen, we're going to adopt." This was years ago. This was before it became popular. We're going to adopt community policing. We're going to break down the town by neighborhoods, and each of you are going to be assigned a neighborhood that is your neighborhood. Now, if you live there, that's a bonus. If you don't, this is the people are going to know you and who you are. And so we started engaging in community policing, and it has paid dividends. I mean, even just in this last year, I can tell you what, we've had two. One could have been really disastrous suicide and involving maybe even other people. And then another was a guy who tried to jump off a satellite tower or radio tower. And both times our police were able to go in and talk them down and use non-lethal force and using compassion and the ability to go in and help them through the process. We have seen time and time again when particular racial issues could become sparked because of interaction between a white officer and a black suspect, or vice versa. We've seen those being able to be de-escalated because of the community policing and the relationships that we have created in the community between our police and the citizens. So we just won another award. I believe we're one of the top police departments in the state. I think when I came on board, I was able to help usher in the body cameras, and then also able to pass and support their use of drones. And those have also been helpful in law enforcement in doing a lot of what they're wanting to do. And of course, we just are very open to helping them. We just recently were 100% staffed in our police department. I think one just left because she decided policing wasn't her thing, but we've been getting laterals in from other communities, as well as, new people coming in, new recruits. People are moving here from the bigger cities because they just don't like the politics and they don't like just the whole environment that's going on in the larger cities. And so I'm very pleased with our police department. I think they've done very well, and they'll continue to do well under the current chief's leadership.
Alrighty. Well, I think that we've reached sort of the end of my prepared remarks and questions, Mr. Russell. So how about we hear your last good pitch for why you want and should be the mayor of Culpeper?
Culpeper is a unique place. We are a unique people. We're distinct from the rest of the Commonwealth. We have a history, and it's based because on our history, our present, and our future, what makes us unique. Our position in the state, not being in Northern Virginia, but more kind of North Central Virginia, small town community with modern amenities, as well as, what I always say is our greatest asset, what makes Culpeper great, is our families, our churches, and our small businesses. That's what makes us who we are. It's not our government. It's not our politicians. That's our secret sauce. And as long as we keep those institutions strong, as long as we dedicate ourselves to maintaining our history and maintaining our vision for the future in regards to history and preservation of that and tourism and economic development, we're going to continue to be a strong town. We're going to continue to be a destination point. And so as the next mayor, that's going to be where my focus is make sure that we maintain what makes us special, what makes us unique, what makes us the envy of the Commonwealth. And so that's my pitch.
Glad we were able to hear it tonight. And I do want to thank you so much, Councilman Russell, for stopping by. And I'm grateful that you shared your thoughts. I know right at the beginning you were talking about how people don't really, sit down to just talk about politics and issues so much as they do just want to be so much to their side. So I'm glad we were just sit and talk about the city, what you like about it, what you want to improve, and on these matters and why you want to run. So hopefully that we will get to stay in touch with you, because you just might win, and we may look to have you on again sometime, and perhaps even maybe some debates. I'm just speaking that into positive affirmations.
Right. Well, I appreciate your show, and just to the people back in Virginia Beach, one of my favorite places to visit, and in the Commonwealth outside my own town. And so definitely hope that we can grab coffee sometime when I get out there in the future.
Absolutely. I'll look forward to that. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll catch you next time, Mr. Russell. Now, this has been another great episode of the Beach Brothers Show, and I'm enjoying the fact that we're able to have on great guests like Councilman Jon Russell and Culpeper every Thursday night, or at least we try every Thursday night around 7:15. They have a great Beach Brothers show to talk about both Virginia politics and Virginia business. So I want you to stop by the Beach Brothers show on Facebook. Look us up, like the page, even on YouTube, subscribe to that channel. And also for our guest tonight, for Mr. Jon Russell for mayor, I still have that link up there. I want you guys to click on that and learn more about our guests. So again, every Thursday, 7:15, watch the Beach Brothers show. Also going forward, I would like you to look up the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, look about what we're trying to do in the community and what we're trying to increase the greatness of the community through great organizations like that. And just make sure you have a nice, safe, and enjoyable evening as Elsa passes through. I hope you guys catch us again next Thursday.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes, we do tax resolution, we lend private money, and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.
And don't forget our great beach brother, Mr. Jose Cruz, and what he has to offer you, Hampton Roads viewers.
It's never too early or too late to plan for retirement. Let me show you how to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your assets from loss due to catastrophic decisions that may affect you the rest of your life. Please call me.